Why is he doing role quests? Just do the MSQ. Streamer, just do the MSQ. I didn't know that happened. Wait, which quest line is it? What the? So the next step on my Final Fantasy XIV journey was something that people weren't particularly excited about, and then I finally figured out why. And hopefully today I'm going to inspire you to check these things out. It was the role quests. Every time I decided that I was doing the role quest while I was on my way through Shadowbringers or on my way through Endwalker, people went, "Oh, you're doing the role quests." And I really enjoyed them. I actually didn't understand why people were pissed, but I had only leveled the Black Mage. That's all I had. So I would do my ranged caster magical role quest, and then I would proceed back onto the MSQ. But I made a note of it mentally. I'm going to level one of every type of function, so melee, tank, healer, purely for the purpose of checking out the role quests, because I spotted a message in my streaming Twitch chat which was, it's really worth you checking them out. This, and I want to give this advice to everybody, is the best way of telling people that there's something to see that's well worth doing without being a spoilerino. That is the way you want to do it, is just go, it's really worth checking this thing out. So, I did it. I leveled myself up a Scholar, a Dark Knight, a Dancer. I got them all ready, and once they were level 90, I decided to jump into the role quests. What did I find? I found not only a multitude of wonderful stories. I'm going to give you no spoilers, but an inclination of what goes on there. But more importantly that, and this is why we're making this video today. After you've done all the role quests, some of you will know, a bonus questline series unlocked. And that has serious implications for what's coming up in the next couple of years in Final Fantasy XIV. And that's what we're going to look at today. Now, obviously, I'm going to follow the code of the game. I'm not going to spoil anything for you, but what I am going to do, because you're going to ask me regardless, is give you a little teaser for what you might be missing, and of course I will rank them, and then you can disagree with me endlessly. Let's start off with the Shadowbringers. So the theme here is pretty simple. We need to learn about the Warriors of Darkness. They are such a major impact on what happens through the Shadowbringers story, yet we really do just follow along with what Ardbert's up to. But there are other Warriors of Darkness, and the role quests take you on their journey to discover what is their past, where did they come from? And you might think, well, why does that matter? It's because it actually plays into what's coming up in Endwalker in terms of the after effects of what happened with these characters. So let's start off with what I consider to be the worst one, which was not bad, but it's worst comparatively to everything else. And this was the physical DPS one, following on with our hunter friend who learns to work as a team, essentially. It's a nice, simple premise. It has some lovely, touching moments in it. Again, I'm considering it 4th place, but that doesn't mean it's terrible by any means. I enjoyed it, I had fun with it, but compared to what's coming up, wasn't quite there, but it was great. In at number 3, unfortunately, even though it's very, very important, and that doesn't really play into how good the individual story is, but it is crucially important to where this goes, is the caster DPS one. This was, if you haven't done this, there's a lot that just doesn't make sense afterwards, and it feels strange that it's segmented off from everything else, where you're introduced to this new character, this young boy, who has a really interesting power, and that power is really important as to what's going on in the rest of the game. And you kind of, if you're gonna do like one of these as an extra alt job or something, do the caster one. Even though I've rated it 3 out of 4, the characters are kind of a big deal, the new characters that are introduced there. And at number 2, and this is where it got tough, was actually the tank one. And I really, really, really enjoyed this. The following on with the pride and the courageous knight, and how he came to be a part of the Warriors of Darkness, and it gave me that Game of Thrones vibe of these. So Barristan Selmy, for anybody who's watched Game of Thrones, is who this reminded me of. This very loyal to the end, even though he was surrounded by mud and slop and corruption and all those kinds of things. This is where it drew me into. And as you can tell, these stories are very, very good. But that, of course, means that my number 1 out of the Shadowbringers role quests was the healer. And God, this was good. This was really good. It's so dark. And you guys know by now, my penchant for the darkness and the morbid and the evil. I love that in storytelling. I don't know why. I think it's because generally things are pretty good overall, and then these stories go into really deep, dark, horrible places. And that's where this goes, especially if you like the lally hoes. No spoilers, but if you like a good lally ho, you're going to get some good lally hoes and some really sad lally hoes, like lally ho, out of this story. It's well worth going. But those are the role quests. If any of those seem intriguing to you, go and check them out if you've not done them yet. It's the bonus stuff that interests me. So both of these stories that we're going to see through the Shadowbringers and Endwalker culminate in utilizing the characters that obviously you've now met through the role quests because you've done them all. So now it can bring them all together into one cohesive unit. And that's what Shadowbringers does, but it does it in a different way. It's utilizing the powers that we found in the caster one in order to investigate something that ties directly into what's happening on the 13th. And that's where things start getting really interesting, because there's another bonus to this. There is another bonus to this that happens after that. You're going to find out, again, no spoilers, but I'm trying to push you to try this stuff out if you didn't do it, because what I saw in my audience was like, I didn't know this existed. Is you're going to find that other characters you've met throughout the MSQ, so if you've done some of the raid trials, are actually going to start doing some stuff which is really crucial. And I have that little inquisitive face on me right now, and that is purely intentional. But I can't tell you how much speculation this led to as to what happened in the recent MSQ of Endwalker, because there's certainly some links there. And in fact, as a little tidbit, what you might find is after doing these, even though they're Shadowbringers content, is their dialogue changes to reflect what's happening now. And it's one of the coolest things Final Fantasy XIV does, is maintain the idea of when a big event happens in the game, who would be interested in this? The lowborn, the common folk, probably not so much. But there are definitely specific characters, whether you met them in the MSQ or met them in the role quests, who are definitely going to be interested in what just happened and the implications that it might have for them. Because let's face it, team, we are going back to the first at some point. Especially if you've done the Eden raid, you know what's happening there, you know what Gaia's up to, and you know what's happening out in the wonderful, lovely, washed with light areas. We're going back there at some point, and these characters are really important to that. So I loved it. It was really good. Go and check it out. Let's move on to Endwalker then, shall we? Well, this takes a different approach. It's got a similar vein in that we're going to revisit characters who have been left behind recently. And also, one of the coolest things I've found is actually going to the Lodestone and reading the intricate backstories of some of our favorite characters. I truly recommend, and you're going to laugh at me now because many of you go, if she comes on screen, but reading Kana Senna's background is actually really inspiring for how that character plays out and why that character is as she is. And her devotion and what she has done for people and her caring nature is really good. Listen to me talk about this. It's crazy, but honestly, it touched me. It was really interesting to read. And now we're going to start to see pieces of that story finding its way into the story via the role quests. So instead of the Warriors of Darkness, we're actually going to be revisiting various characters. And this is very hit and miss compared to Shadowbringers. So I will rank them again. So at 5th place, there's 5 now. We've got a separate one for ranged, physical, and for melee. At number 5, you're going to be dealing with the Pirates and Merlwyb. Now, Merlwyb is actually one of my favorite leaders. She's second to the Sultana because frankly I found her awesome. I love how stalwart she is. She's salty, she's seen some stuff, she's got that military mind. And when I first started A Realm Reborn a year ago, that was the first leader I was like, I like this leader, I'm going with her. Yes, I know I disrespected Nanamo, but ultimately Limsa looks cooler than Uldar. Sorry. So I went with this and was very excited for it. Unfortunately, this was easily the most disappointing story. Some of the characters involved you won't recognize unless you've done certain job quests that involve them, but ultimately when the reveal happened, I can honestly say this one I was the most excited by. I actually chose a jokey option in one of the dialogue boxes, which turned out to be correct, and I was like, oh wow, this is going to be really cool. This one was genuinely just disappointing. Rather than being still great like we had in Shadowbringers in my number 4th place, but not as good, this one was generally like, this isn't cool. But it got much, much better way quicker, because we did then, at number 4 is the tank one, which is Kana Senna. And as I said, and I just give you that police brief, you have that introduction of Kana Senna's past and why she behaves how she does and her commitment to the people. And plus it gives you some really good, interesting insights into how Gridania actually works and things you're going to do, especially with how, and this is the overall theme of these role quests, how people are dealing with despair. because that's our general feeling. Everybody listening to this has probably done a singular role quest, so you know it's about dealing with the despair that has spread to other regions of Etheirys, and how you're going to deal with that and purify it and bring the people some level of calm. There is a running theme through this that the general populace hasn't dealt with stuff as they probably should. Certainly in this one, and later on that we'll see that in the ranged physical one, is like you would have expected those people to have dealt with it better. They haven't, but now there's repercussions to it. But it works really well, giving you good insight into the backstory of these characters. So I would put Kanasena, as much as I love her, at number 4. And number 3 would be the ranged physical. We're going to go see Hien, and we're going to go to Dorma. We're going to Dorma. And we're also going to meet someone else. Go and play it. It's really good. We're going to meet someone else. Don't type it in the YouTube comments. Don't do it. We're going to go meet someone else. The ranged physical one was very, very cool. And again, is along that theme of perhaps Dorma should have dealt with things a little better after the recent events that have been happening, and they haven't been dealing with it particularly well. Lord Hien is not my favorite character. Don't shoot me. He's kind of naive and plain Jane in some ways. He's not a rich character, I would say, for me. But we do get to see some other characters that you've probably missed. Go play it. Go play it. In at number 2 then would be the caster one. I had to go back and refresh me of this because I did it at the time that I played through Endwalker. But this is really good. This is dealing with with Sir Emeric. We love Sir Emeric. He's good. And the aftermath of what's happened with the church. And it's very dark. It's very, very dark as to all these people with all this power are now brought low, and how they deal with that, and how they reflect on it, and what's going to be the ultimate conclusion to this. Because there are obviously people who are in great high power who had belief systems utterly shattered, and now despair is spreading amongst them. So always calling back, and again, one of the wonderful things about the living, breathing world of Eorzea is calling back to what happened in Heaven's Ward, and that's still relevant to this day. These issues aren't just like, it's the end of the expansion, full stop, and everything is fine. We're not going that road, which is very cool. So that obviously means at number 1, once again, twice in a row, was the healer quest lines. I don't know why, but the healers just get the absolute best quest lines. And this involved characters I love and characters I desperately wanted to know more about. So the characters I love, Raban, and of course, Nanamo are going to be involved in this one. We're going to be dealing with Alamigo. We're going to be heading over there to see what we can do. But we're also going to get much, much richer backstory of Fordola and Ironvald and how they're going to be progressing forward. Last time we saw them, Fordola was kind of pushing Ironvald's wheelchair. And now we're getting to see how those characters are adapting to this new world where things have changed and, the Garleans have fallen, and what are we going to do? And on that note, it brings us to the bonus quests. So the bonus quest line here is not as relevant, I wouldn't say, and it might be. You never know with the writers, how relevant this is going to be. But the Garleans themselves, who else is feeling the most despair right now after what's happened in the actual Endwalker finale of our original MSQ? The Garleans, they're fractured, broken people who were at the height of power and also felt that what they were doing was so utterly, incredibly amazing, and now they're kind of lost in this tundra and lands taken from them, their leaders killed or committing suicide, as you will know. Things like that have been happening to them, so they are clearly at the height of despair. I would still go back and say that Garlemald is my favorite zone in the entire game. So having the bonus quest line that occurs there involving all the characters we've just played, so it's like the ultimate D team is what I would call it. If you were to choose which team would be alongside you in a thick of battle, it's probably not Merlwyb and Hien and things like that, but they come together really well in a fun storyline. But dealing with the after effects of Garlemald and what Alisaie and Alphinaud are doing over there is pretty amazing. Well, there you have it. If I've not inspired you enough to go and check these things out, because the biggest feedback and surprise that I saw from people was, I have no idea this existed. And the only reason I don't know is I just cannot be bothered to level up alternative jobs just to play through one afternoon of questing. It is so worth it. It really is, especially if you love the MSQ, which I know many of you do, is that going through these role quests not only reunites you with characters where you might be thinking through the MSQ, I wonder what that character is up to. I wonder what's going on with them. Or even revisiting and getting to spend more time with the big, big characters that have made your journey in FF14 so memorable. They're in there. They're tucked away. It reminds me very much of my confusion at the start of A Realm Reborn as to where the hell is Alizé. This is clearly an important character. And then you go off to do coils and you're like, oh, this character has been segmented off for this piece of content. That's what happens with the role quests and these bonus quests. The ramifications of what is going on, especially with the Shadowbringers ones, and especially what we've seen in Endwalker now with the introduction of Golbez and the darkness that's enshrouding there and the light that's happening over on the First and the way they're changing things, is going to come into play. They're not going to force you to play through the role quests. I can't see that happening because it does involve leveling a character. But they are going to be pulling information from these areas, and this all leads into what's going to happen next. I implore you, it's well worth it. If you're stuck for things, and one of the most common complaints I see from people is, oh, I just play through the story and then there's not much else to do in this MMO. One, that is massively untrue. I've been playing for nearly 1 year. Today, pretty much 12 months to the day we're recording this video, and I'm just getting this piece of content done. And all I can tell you is after playing through them and after going through, especially the bonus that ties it all together after you do them, is I am so much more excited and so much more context for where Squeenix is taking us on this road. So go and check it out, I beg of you, all right? Thank you so much for watching. We are sorry that our disc plates are currently no longer on sale. We had a 1-week blast that disc plate allowed us, but we are working on it. Don't worry, they'll be back at some point. I don't know when, but watch this space. Bye, everybody.